everybody. It is VIja Williams with Ben Kinney Companies. It is 12:01 Pacific time, so we are going to get started. It is Wednesday, and that means we are here doing our weekly webinars. I am so excited about our webinar today. These guys did 108 listings in 90 days. And we're going to learn, how they did it, what everything. And I think what you're going to find in the process, what I found is that you're going to learn a lot about team culture, about leadership, and about a lot of cool growth things that have nothing to do with the competition in the process, because I did on our prep call. It was pretty amazing. So we're going to start hot. I'm not going to go into a bunch of housekeeping. I'm not going to go into a bunch of announcements other than to say we are here live every Wednesday at noon Pacific time, almost without fail. The only time we are not here live is when I'm out of town. So, and that's sadly not often enough. So we are here every Wednesday at noon. The replays are always available either on the Pivot Shift Ahead Facebook group or on YouTube. You can find us on YouTube, and we can put the link, maybe Robin can put the link in. So who we have here is the Huffaker group, right? Huffaker. Did I say it right?
Good to me. Yeah, it's close.
Oh. Let me just make sure. Oh, you know what? I just realized my music was going the whole time. David, can you say that again? I missed you. My audio is all wacky. Huffaker. See, I said it wrong.
Huffaker. I'll be honest, at this point, I'm not real sure how it's said. I just go with whatever. It's been said so many different ways. You should ask Siri to say it.
You should ask Siri to say my name. That's a fun one.
Oh,
yeah,
I bet.
That's a fun one. Yeah. So David, would you tell us, I kind of want to start out with you introducing yourself. I think you're going to do a better job of walking us through your journey and how you got here and what your team looks like now. We have Dana Hutton and Phil Kingsley from your team. Phil, you're the sales manager. Dana, you're the listing manager. Is that the right title? Did I get that right?
What, like David said, go by whatever. Listings manager, listings director, expert.
Okay. Perfect. Got it. So David, can you kind of walk us through your journey in real estate so that people have an understanding of how you got here and what your team looks like now?
Sure. Yeah, no, I appreciate you having us on. I know I kind of have two parts to it, right? And so I got my real estate license back in 2004. I just didn't love working for other people, didn't love the corporate world, had got out of college in 2002 and just made the decision to get into real estate. I had an aunt in real estate and kind of thought like, all right, that's the highest use to make money and to help other people. And so when I got in, I actually started working for a national home builder. And so that's really where I cut my teeth. It was interesting at 23, I felt it was really important that I have insurance and all this other stuff because I didn't have anybody to take care of. So I don't really know why I thought that. But I was, newly married, felt like that was what I needed. So I went down the path of on-site sales and working for a builder and really enjoyed that. It was more money than I had dreamed of making, and the environment was very competitive. I found that I loved the sales aspect of it. And so I learned a lot through that. Fast forward to, I remember 2007, the recession hit. I actually remember going and applying to open up a State Farm agency and kind of going through that process. And through that, I didn't end up doing that, but I did uncover that I loved the idea of running my own shop. If you will. And so made the decision in 2012 to leave the new home world. Can y'all hear me all right?
You sound a little muffled. That's why I asked. Maybe it's just mine though. It could just be mine.
Is that better? Anybody? Good. All right. So yeah, left in 2012. I had gotten my broker's license, and a good friend of mine was a team leader at Keller Williams. Funny story. Ended up she called me. Had recruited, I don't want to say recruited me, we'd known each other for a while. And I ended up actually going to another brokerage when I left that national home builder. And so I spent about a year really failing forward. It was interesting. Those first 90 days were a real challenge. I remember having quite a bit of money saved up. I think unlike most agents, I'd actually done some research, got my broker's license, had about $50,000 to kind of lead into this world of real estate.
Well, it was unlike me. Yeah, that is unlike most agents. Yeah.
Most of us, it was 2-week class and a credit card, and we're off. And so it was I remember about 90 days in going to my wife, and we had 3 kids at home, and she was there taking care of our family, and kind of saying, man, this is harder than I thought it was going to be, and really failing through it and looking at her and saying, if we can't sell some houses in the next 30 days, we're both going to have to go get real jobs, because we were used to a certain level of income. We were spending money faster than we were making it. And I probably just underestimated the amount of energy and effort it took to get the ball rolling up front, right?
Yeah.
Thankfully that month we sold about 1.6 million in real estate. Month 5 and 6 were a little hit or miss. But thankfully that summer, somebody introduced me to an OP who bought a ticket for me to fly to see Gary that August. And so through that, this was around 2013, went to see Gary and just fell in love with the models, really the economic model, and kind of felt like Gary spoke my language. At the time, I said he stole all my ideas, because I had kind of followed an economic model in new construction, but I didn't know that's what it was called. And so it was really interesting, kind of came back on fire for that. I had told my previous broker that I would give them a year. And so I wanted to honor that. And so about that time, I knew Phil. Phil was the director at a gymnastics camp or company in town where my boys were doing conditioning. And I knew that he was just, everyone loved Mr. Phil, right? All the moms oohed and ahed over him. And I told my wife, like, man, I'm gonna go ask that really loud, crazy looking guy at the gym if he wants to start a real estate team. And I always say to this day, it's the only time I get to tell my wife I told you so, because she was like, no, you're not gonna go do that, are you? Much credit to Phil. I did. Phil and I, we chuckle because neither one of us would make it onto the team now if we had to meet our standards and expectations.
Isn't that the truth? That's a sign of a good company.
Well, and
when you couldn't get hired at your own company.
I think we made that decision in about 15 minutes over 2 beers at Chili's. It was like,
that is
hey,
perfect.
You seem pretty cool. You wanna take a crack at this real estate team thing? And so we did, right? And Phil came on. Phil was part-time for the first few years, actually. And so we kind of had, we were in a path together, but separate. And so about early February of 2014, we made the move to Keller Williams. And just, I don't want to say the rest is history, but one of the top 5 teams to make it to 100 million in less than 5 years. I only know of one other one, but I say the top 5 because I'm sure there's some out there that have done it. And it's really been this journey of understanding, being extremely loyal to the models. I think that one of the things we discovered along the way was that if I make the company all about what I do best, then I create some natural ceiling. Or if the company becomes about who everyone can achieve a certain level, but I'm in control or I'm in charge or it has to be my way, then that's assuming that I'm better than everybody else at something. And I just don't. I assume I'm probably worst, or there's somebody out there that can do every step of the process better. And so that's where we really kind of found the vision for the team was like, okay, well, let's go and partner with people that can do each step a little bit better. And so we started the team, did a lot of open houses and new construction early on, just because my background was in new construction. As we developed it out, we found that as we segmented it, right, I started doing listings, Phil would work the buyers. And we kind of found that we could hire some buyer's agents and give them opportunities to sit in open houses each week, to lead generate through that, show them the success. I always say my 10,000 hours is in open houses, being trained by professionals and doing on-site sales. And so we just really had a good knack for open houses and could teach people how to do it pretty well. Through that, I remember in about 2000 and I guess it's probably about 2017, we were listening to Gary in Austin at a mega camp or a family reunion or something like that. And it was about listening to him and Tony DeCello talk a lot about the database. And that was really my aha moment to look up and go, all right, if we don't go out and build a successful database plan, then we are going to continue to have to get up every day for the rest of our life and hustle, right? It was more about grit early on, right? We were a gritty team. We were willing to get out there and talk. And so as we grew that, we fell in love with it, and we started getting great returns on our database. Dana Hutton happened to show up in my world about 2 years after I started the team. And so I kind of joke to say, like, I got out of the business in about 2 years. I found that I really fell in love with developing people and seeing other people succeed. I like working with buyers and sellers, not against that. But it's just like my passion became like really seeing other people thrive through the successes of real estate and what can be created. And so my coach had asked me, like, how many people would you need to replace you? And I remember thinking it was a trick question. So I'm like, well, one, like I'm just one person, so it couldn't take that many people to replace myself. And actually, I think I walked into an interview with Dana maybe 4 days later. Is that about right, Dana? I remember it's kind of like you grow into the conversations around you. And I never had any intention of stepping out of production. In fact, I asked him, like, is that real? Do people really do that? And Dana just happened to show up into my world. Dana, we've been together, what, 5 years? A little over 5 years. And so Dana came in, we spent 90 days together, kind of learning the listing piece of it. Dana scared for her life while she rode around town with me, and I texted and drove with my knees, and we always joke that she's lucky to be alive. And she kind of took over the listing side of the business. And so as it's grown, we started focusing on expansion. Gary said, don't just go out and do it willy-nilly style, like have a plan. And we said, we know better. And so we went out and just started throwing mud at the wall and made a hot mess of it, screwed it up, launched some locations. They were profitable, but they were just a nightmare to try to organize and track. We found that we really cared about the brand and what was being said at the kitchen table. And so through that, right, we stopped, we went back and said, what does build the platform mean? We started writing training magazines or training programs, things like that. And through that, right, we've evolved into this team now. We're in what? 2020 was our best year ever. We did about 140 million last year. We ended the year probably with about 7 locations around the country in Middle Tennessee. And about a year and a half ago, we really started expanding outside of the Middle Tennessee area. Currently, we're proud to say in 2021, we've already beat our 2020 numbers. So about halfway through the year, we matched our numbers in 2020. We're currently in 10 locations, on pace to close around 250 million this year. And a lot of that has to do with the credit of, I love that I get to be a part of this team and in business with really great people. But I mean, you take people like Phil, you take people like Dana, and they're just so much better at it than I am. And so it's definitely a collaboration of finding some of the best people out there, understanding that they're going to be really good at what they do. And I have to create a world large enough where they can succeed and excel. And I have to be okay with them being better than me. I think that's a tough lesson to learn as a leader. And I'll say I kind of learned that lesson the hard way back in my new construction days with my ego and thinking it was all about me. And so I'll say, like, it was a tough lesson to learn, but it's paid off to come back now and be able to see them thrive and them excel. And so we went into this 90 and 90, right? We've tried it for the last few years. Let me stop.
Hold on. Before we go into 90 and 90, I want to pause. You said a lot of cool stuff. And so you're in Nashville. I really want to review this a little bit. So you did how many transaction sides last year, did you say?
What did we do last year? 440?
440 transaction sides. And then this year so far, year to date, you're at what?
I just asked Phil this question of 470, 480 year to date.
Okay. So that is a massive amount of units, my friend. I mean, that right there, I just wanted to pause on that a little bit. And then you said something that nobody talks about, and I've talked about it before, and I don't think people would really understand how important it is unless they've gone through the process of replacing themselves. And that is the concept that, your ego actually takes a little bit of a bruise for a while when you hire people better than you.
Yeah,
I
I think
just want
that
to, that's a big topic.
we say fell forward a lot, and it becomes kind of this cliche term, but like we forget how much pain is in that failure sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So we
That's
can
right.
kind of say that, right, and use it, and and it sounds fancy, but it's painful, and a lot of the building the business is painful, and I think you got to just remember that it's worth it, right? Whatever you're going through, the pain of it to grow is worth it. And when you really can look up and see others succeeding through an environment that you've helped create, the payoff's definitely worth it.
Mm-hmm. The only reason I wanted to pull that out before we moved on is that I think that it's actually the lid of a lot of leaders. And that is, and I don't think it's always conscious where they they're not aware that it's their ego, but where they hire people better than them, and they're kind of getting in their way of success sometimes, right? And so it's just I'm just going to let that sit, and we're going to move on, but it's probably a bigger topic than I think than people realize. And the other reason I wanted to pause on that is I kind of wanted us to absorb your unit count. And as we walked into this year, I kind of want to start with what made you want to go into kind of a gamification? Where did this come from? Where did this whole conversation start on taking 90 listings in 90 days?
Yeah. So one thing back to the hiring or growing, I will say that Phil was a fantastic counterpart for me, to be humble, and he was always focused on how is this best for the customer, how is this best for the consumer, how is this best for the agent that's a part of our organization. And so Phil probably still doesn't understand some days why I pull him in on conversations, but it's because he's always that check and balance for me. To make sure that I'm not being too far one way or the other, or too emotional in the decision process. So I think that that's valuable, right? Gary always says we're only 3 hires away from building an empire. And I think that holds true. So the gamification of it, I think probably a lot of it comes from my new construction and working sales environment. We're pretty, sometimes I go like, we're too much carrot. We always have something going on, some way to keep everybody focused or incentivized. But I guess it was about 3 years ago, we started, one of my maths coaches had mentioned to me about teams doing this 90 and 90. We were really struggling. We kind of understand, I think as you build out an organization, the buy side of the business becomes somewhat systematic, right? I mean, you know how to generate the leads, you know how to ask for the referrals, you know how to do open houses. We were very, I don't want to say it was easy, but it became spigots that we could turn up and turn and kind of control the buy side of the business. The listing side of the business, because we're about 40% database overall, the listing side of the business was still very manual, right? There wasn't that easy button, maybe like there is with buyers. And so we really started to say, like, in order for us to maintain a healthy balance on the profitability, we really needed to maintain a 50-50, 60-40 business, somewhere thereof. And at the time, we still had quite a bit of new construction. So at that time, new construction made up about 25% of our overall business. And what we found was that company was masking our expense ratios, right? And so the new construction business was highly profitable. We were running at about a 60% net margin on the new construction business, which when layered in with the rest of the company, made our profit margins look like they were about 30 to 33% overall.
Yeah. So you were using a blended average instead of kind of, taking each cost center and doing separate P&Ls on that, right? Yeah. That's very, very common. Yeah. I'm guessing the reason your new construction was so profitable is because the builder did the marketing, that there is really no other costs associated. Right. And you figured out your cost of sale. I really quickly do want to stop you. We have a lot of guests on our webinars that are not Keller Williams. So, the 30-second explanation of what David is talking about is that your cost of sale, what you pay out on a buyer side is, we'll use 50% on average, right? Say it's 50%. And in the millionaire real estate agent model, the listing specialist is paid a salary plus, and it can vary, but 10 to 20% of the listing. So that cost of sale is, 15, 20, maybe 25% compared to the 50% blended together. The blended average of that should be 33%. Your expenses should be, depends, whatever, 25 to 30% cost of sale, 25 to 30, 30, so that you're getting anywhere from a 30 to 40% net profit margin, right? So that's kind of a very, very, simplistic explanation of what David's talking about. So your buyer side, if you just took that cost center and you did a separate P&L, it wouldn't have the same profit margin as your listing side. So you need a good, strong listing side if you're going to have a team, so that you can blend them together and get your desired profit. Just wanted to make sure everyone got that.
Spot on. Yeah, and that's what happened, right? You're right. We had an agreement with the builder that he handled all the costs associated with marketing and things like that. So our real cost was essentially one admin. And so highly profitable. And at the time, we knew this builder. I'd been with him about 5 years. We knew he was pretty notorious for switching agents. I knew he wanted to take sales in-house. So it was kind of an if or a win, not if scenario of us getting out of business with him. But so my coach had me take the P&L for the new construction and break it out as a separate business. We also did that because it was going to be a real challenge to expand with builders being one of our core lead sources. And so when we broke it out, we looked up and realized that our margins were really skinny, right? That it was not a sustainable business without the builder, or not what we would like it to have been. So as we did that, we looked up and we said, okay, well, how do we go take more listings, right? If we want to make sure this is a 50-50, our minimum threshold is kind of 60-40, right? We don't ever want to have any more than 60% buyers, 40% listings. And so we said, well, how would we go about that, right? How do we increase listings without there just being this, for us, like SEM is an easy buyer spigot, right? Like I can just drive more leads to my website, they register, ISA filter through them, we make money. The listing side, we didn't have that, right? And so it basically came back to database, circle prospecting, agent referrals were a big piece of our business, but we really just didn't have, we were trying to find the right lead sources. And we really looked up and said, well, our team definitely operates on a segmented business, right? So buyers agents work with buyers, listing agents work with listings. And we said, well, if we could get the buyers agents bought in on when they lead generate a listing, we pay a 15% referral fee to them for generating that piece of business. And then they pick up the buy side of it, right, as well, when they list and they go buy something else. And so it was the chance for helping our buyers agency is they could actually make more money through lead generating for listings, helped us shift the business to the healthier, right, the 60-40, 50-50, depending on the month. And then really getting fierce with our expenses, right? I think COVID helped a ton with that. But today we're running at a 37% profit margin.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's much better than where we were, very healthy, and we're doing more business than ever. So I think that our first try at the 90 and 90, and I'll let Dana and Phil kind of jump in on some of this. It wasn't awesome. I was proud of what we accomplished at the time. But we did it a couple of times, right, and fell through it and trying to attempt it so that we could keep a more balance, really to make it more the culture of our team. So we kind of said, like, we're going to do this every year.
So before because I want Dana and Phil to kind of jump into the nitty gritty what this was, but before we do that, do the math for me a little bit, David. If based on your current rate and your current ratios, what is an average month of listings for you? Because I kind of want to give everybody a sense of what we were trying to go from to during this.
Yeah, I'm probably going to be a little bit embarrassed by this number.
Yeah, it's just fine,
Yeah, prior to February, our worst months were maybe 8 or 9 listings. On a good month, right, we might take 15 to 20. Dana can probably validate those numbers better than I can. But I'd say that was, I know, like I would be sad if I saw less than 10 listings. I just felt like, oh no, what are we doing here? But I know we had some tough months, right, where that was the case.
Okay. So Dana, do you want to kind of just jump in and walk us through what 90 and 90, what it was for you guys. I know there it's kind of a universal thing, but what was, or maybe Phil, I don't know which one the better of you is, but walk us through what is 90 and 90 for the Huffaker group. Phil, we're on Zoom. That's a mute.
Okay, well, I guess I'm going to take that question. So like Phil or like David said, we kind of fell forward, right? I mean, and we came close. I believe our second time we got like 87. So, I mean, we were close to our goal.
I love how David's like, I was really disappointed. It really sucked. I'm like, you got 87 out of 90. That doesn't suck, but okay.
So, and, as David also said, our team has developed really over time. And many of the people that were with us this time have not been with us in previous times, or maybe half and half, right? So to get everybody on board, right, provide that clarity of what the 90 and 90 really is. And like David said as well, it was all about that mindset shift, all the way down to our success team. Okay. And so getting everybody on board, if they're getting referrals on our backlog calls, it's the buyer's agents setting listing appointments. It's the buyer's agents at the open houses, getting those listings. And we also have an ISA department. So it was having everybody's focus and top of mind that it was all listings, and you had to keep it top of mind or everybody got distracted. You had to keep everybody's energy level up. And what we learned in the past is, you had to have a plan, right? It had to be systematic. And one of the things that we did a little bit differently too is looking at the teams. So we did make it a game, and there were 6 teams, and they all varied from 5 to 6 people a piece. Okay. And every team had at least one ISA, at least one success team member, at least 2 buyers agents, and at least 1 to 2 listing agents. And there was 2 ways to win. You could win on your team, right? Because those teams were spread across, 5 different states or more, in different places. And then we had the second way was to be able to have a team, like we had the Mount Juliet hub, or we had, the Clarksville or Nashville or Cincinnati. So everybody had their individual expansion offices as a team. So we all had different goals. And we had to meet a goal. You had a captain to lead you for that first 60 days. And then that captain had to then turn you over to, say, a co-captain for that last 30 days, because like we spoke about last week, you get tired, right? At that 60-day mark. And like David said, we had to dangle that carrot. And also there was a prize, right? Every game has a prize and has to have a winner. What we also learned over the course of it is that we now had expansion offices. It was no longer David taking us to the local water park, right, with our families or whatever that prize may be. We had to make it universal because we were in different locations. So we really had to do some dissecting and a lot more planning this time, and making sure that everybody had clarity, because in the past, some people would never understand, how it worked. And also credit with that 90 and 90 went to the person that set the appointment, not to that listing agent who's sitting at the table. It's who set the appointment. So that ISA person set the appointment, or that success team member gave us a referral, or the listing agent set that appointment. Whoever set the appointment got the point for their team.
So David and Phil, what was the mindset around that?
Yeah, and I would say, my role for the team, or one of my primary roles, is kind of like the maps coach for the agents on the team, right? So
Okay.
Prior to getting into this, failing through it several other times, being with the team every time we've tried it and failed, I'd say it's almost purely mindset. Like, why do it? How is it going to benefit you and your company? How do we get buy-in from the agents? And then how do we hold them accountable to the models we create for them to be successful? So kind of like Dana said, expansion partners obviously taking 90 listings in 90 days, being listing focused. I mean, you're taking territory, you're taking pieces of business that are going to close. So you take a listing, once you list it, is going to sell. And 75% of the time that listing will come with a buyer. which we have unique programs where we can place them into homes and make that transition easy for them. The buyer's agents were a little bit different. You know, why spend your time focusing on listings? How do we get buy-in from them? I'd say 15% referral fee for our buyer's agents setting a listing appointment, and once it sells, they get 15%. Average commission, considering our average sales price, is somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000. So, you know, you take 4 or 5 listings, it's a lot of money that they can make, and they get the benefit of servicing the buyer should they choose to. So really my role was building up to the initiation of it all, get mindset right, get trajectory right, build the models for our buyer's agents who are not necessarily listing focused. So using the expansion, you know, the nearest expansion agent's economic model for listings specifically, taking those metrics and then having those buyer's agents follow through with, hey, if you want to take 4 agreements for this competition over the 90 days, this is how many listing driven dials you need to make in order to get the results you're looking for, building out their plans and holding them accountable to it.
So Phil, I want to stay on you a bit. That was really helpful. Thank you. What was the mindset behind the appointment setter getting the credit for the listing?
You know, rewarding the activity, very similar to the 15% referral fee, right? You know, we want to reward the behavior for our agents, bringing listing business back to our team, which we know listings is how you take territory and continue to be stable within the industry. So that's the mindset that we had to focus on through this competition to make sure that everybody stayed focused on it.
Yeah, and you do mention mindset a lot, and I want to dive in there a little bit. So what I'm hearing you say is that you guys, as the ELT, as the executive leadership team, you guys had to get your mindset right, and you had to get behind it. What I'm curious about is how you got buy-in from, especially the buyer's agents and the admins, success team behind this. How you got buy-in and how you got their mindset right and excited about this.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, I would also say this: the reason why our 90/90 was so successful is the reason why we are successful as a team. I mean, everything that we do, we all have one common goal. We all have our own individual roles to play, and we all focus on how do we collectively achieve our goals, right? Same thing with the 90 and 90. Now with the buyers, it's simply put, you know, financially, how can we help you achieve your goal? How do you get a taste of mailbox money? You know, if you're going to get $1,500 to $2,000 through a 5-minute phone call, is that scalable? Is it repeatable? And how does it affect your business, right? And like we had to create that mindset. Like, all right, so I have to shift gears a little bit. You know, I'm not focusing on internet leads or just my database. I'm going to go get listings. Scripting was important, right? Getting people ready, because if we all are in the same market, this is a skills-based market. If you're going to get on the phone and prospect for listings, you better know what you're doing, right? So scripting was a piece of it for sure, but it all started with mindset, and it's all going to start with these agents. Why do it? Like if you're going to say you're going to take 4 agreements as a buyer's agent on the list side, why do it? How's it going to benefit you? How's it going to benefit your company? How's it going to impact your life? What are you going to do with the money? And then that is how we anchor accountability to those goals.
I think that's a really, really good, you know, coaching and management, you know, hack in a way, you know, is literally tying a specific amount and pre-spending the money, you know, and kind of saying like, what are you going to do with this? What's that going to do? And get that tied in. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, we always say, like, you know, these agents are not going to achieve our goals for us. They're going to achieve their goals for them. And that's what we focus on. We focus on their goals. How do we help them achieve them?
Well, and 2 things, I think Phil does a really great job. Phil's out of production as well, by the way. I don't ever mention that, but I always love to bring that up. I think it's neat that we've been able to build that organization. But Phil does a great job of helping them understand, like, it's their business, right? And we're helping them build their business and their success. As a leadership team, initially, we looked up and understood that listings seemed to be a challenge in this market. And yet if we could take them, the amount of time that it took to get them and get them under contract, the multiple offers, all of it, like it really was, you take a listing, it's a guaranteed paycheck, you know, in this market. And so we kind of looked up and said, like, okay, we understand that. We have 6 unique models that we've written out for expansion that we've been building on. And in early this year, even though we've done 90 and 90s in the past, we started to recognize that like the one number that mattered in order for them to build, in order for them to add more agents, in order for them to grow, was the listings taken number. And so it's like, okay, there's a lot of noise around all of this, but the listings taken number matters. And so we went to our expansionists and said, look, what if when you hit a certain number of listings taken every month, you give up buyers completely? Because that's how the model is intended to grow, right? Same way I built, or we built it at the Hub. And so we went to our expansionists and said, okay, well, if listings taken matters, when you get to, as an expansion agent, when you get to 4 listings a month closed, you really don't need financially you now have the lead sources to have buyers agents, they're healthy. And so it became this conversation with the buyers agents, say like, hey, help your expansionists grow to close 4 listings a month. And when they do, they will stop working with all buyers, which means that you'll get more business, right? Because they're going to give you their buyers to work with. They'll stop taking team buyer leads and things. So it just became more for the buyer's agent. I think that was a critical conversation. Phil does a really good job. He did it with COVID. He did it with Dana and him both did it with the 90 and 90 of saying like, hey, we've got to pivot and we need everybody to focus over here. And it's just been amazing, the culture of our team, to see how within about a 3 to 4 week period, you see this, what's becoming this larger ship just turn on a dime, right? And they just have this loyalty and this belief that we genuinely are doing it all for their best interest. We're trying to see down the path and around corners for them. And so and every time we've done it, even from moving from taking, agents don't take leads anymore, building out the ISA team. Years ago, we had to lower some of the splits. And so they were willingly came along with us on that journey. All of this stuff has been great, right? Like, they just shift and they go like, we believe you guys have our best interest at heart. And it plays out. And I always give kudos to our leadership team, Phil and Dana, for constructing that conversation in a way that they gain buy-in and get that.
I love that.
One thing to add to that as well, I think, as far as strategy is concerned, and I would say whether you're a single agent, an expansion agent, a mega agent, as far as why do it or why should we turn this ship to focus on listings, the conversation we had a lot through the 90 and 90 was the quality of life while we do it, right? So how do we increase business and quality of life at the same time? And it's going to be through listings. It's one appointment with 2 agreements. So really, you set 1 appointment, you're setting 2. You have the opportunity to hold 2, and of course, economic model, I'm just going to run it down the line, to gain 2 agreements in 1 appointment, to get 2 closings, and then to be able to generate business off of those 2 transactions. As far as quality of life is concerned, focusing on listings will make the most sense in terms of risk first reward or effort first reward. And now I'll shut up about strategy.
No, it's so good. You don't have to shut up about anything. This is fascinating. So what were your lead sources coming into this? I kind of want to dive into that a little bit. And did you add any lead sources, or did you just go deeper with the ones you had? So kind of walk us through, I don't know who the best person to ask is, walk us through what your primary lead sources are. And then if you add in any, you're just, like I said, enhanced what you had for the competition.
No, I'm kind of the data junkie. So the best I can say, again, with listings, over the last few years, we've really been trying to find our way to that systematic, right? I think of if you're in KW, right, if you read the MREA, it's the leads, listings, and leverage. I'll say we've gotten really good at the leads piece of it. We are constantly working to master the leverage piece of it. When it comes to the listings, right, there's still this question mark about it. And Dana was such a phenomenal test study for our first listing agent to kind of go out. But Dana, the office I'm sitting in, right? Dana went to elementary school on this land, right? Like, she knows this community. She's the president, or she organized her 20-year reunion. Like, she is Miss Mount Juliet. Everyone knows her and loves her. And she's so good at communicating with her database tactfully about real estate. And so she really is the gold standard. And so we've tried to help other people emulate that. But not everybody has that influence, right, in that database piece. And so as we've kind of watched that, I was shocked at how many leads are coming through internet. And so we are fairly internet driven in our organization, meaning that we drive them to our personal website. We don't buy them from third party websites. Okay. We drive them to our site. And then so many of the buyers that came, because I always think of internet leads as buyers, and yet at this time we're 18 to 20% of our listings are coming through the internet.
Wow.
I do think that went up when we had conversations with our ISAs about how valuable listings were to the business, right? And so we have conversations a lot with, we call them engagement experts, but our ISAs about how we're looking for return on investment from our employees, right? And so when we started saying like, look, as you lead generate for listings, that's worth so much more to the organization than just another buyer, right? And so actually during the 90 and 90, I doubled all their bonuses on listings. And isn't it cool how just through having that conversation and putting a little bit of financial incentive behind it, they started asking more questions, right? They started going deeper and looking for those opportunities to find listings. And again, kind of the hidden thread of all of this is if we can change your mindset for 66 days, you do what, right? All of a sudden you create a habit. And so where they might not have realized what we were doing in the process, right? We've created this habit. Which, Dana, what did we take? July was our first month after, or June was our first month after the 90 and 90, and we took how many listings? 28, right?
Wow.
And so we kind of said like, all right, can we keep this going, right? Let's 30 in 30 days. And the one thing I'll put on this, right, I did go back and look and say, is it possible we won because we had more people, right? Because we have expanded, we have added, but we went back and looked, we really don't have any more humans than we had this time last year as far as people who could take listings. And so part of me in investigating it was like, oh, do we just have more people, right? Is that really how we were able to do it this time and not last time? And that doesn't seem to be the truth based off of the data that I kind of dug into.
So is it overly simplistic to say you didn't really increase leads, you increased conversion, meaning your agents had what they had, right, Dana, for database and Sphere? What you did was sort of overemphasize and reward and teach new skills on how to convert them.
That's correct. And I would say one of the best scripts that have incorporated into our scripts, I'd say over the past, 60 to 90 days is, if you're in a market, similar like Nashville, many of us are, is, it's a seller's market, right? Everybody's first question is, well, if I sell, where I'm going to go? So you got to get really, really on point with those scripts. However, you also had to paint the picture for the clients, right? Okay, yes, we understand that. We have resources to still help you find a home. However, let me ask you this. Are you aware how much your home is worth in this market? Are you aware what your equity position? And we've been using that term equity position that I had learned on a mastermind with KW. What are you going to do with that money? Are you going to put all that money towards the next house? Are you going to pay off student loans, pay off cars? Do you have something else financially restricting you? Because if we can help identify what all they can do with that money and how that will impact their families, that was very eye-opening for our clients to really just sit back and like, you're right, we can do this.
I love that. And what I love about using that phrase equity position is that no one's probably asked them that before. And so their natural answer would be to engage and say, oh, no, that's great. That's really, really good. I love that. And that kind of leads me into, Dana, let's stay on you for a minute. That kind of leads me into my follow-up question that I was going to ask is, what new scripts and tools did you learn through this, right? And that is one of them. What else did you guys do that worked, like in the trenches now, in the weeds? What worked? What did you say? Who did you call? Like, let's get in the weeds with it. What did you do differently?
I honestly don't know that we did anything different other than, that was one of the scripts that really stood out and helping them paint that picture of what they really could do with that money. In addition to that, and Phil and David can I can't identify anything, right? I know, outside of scripting, like I said earlier, we really had to keep it front of mind. We utilized GroupMe to do kind of those shout outs, which we really hadn't done in the past. So when somebody set a listing appointment or gained a listing, they're shouting it out. And then I was finding, a funny image that was like, oh, we're at 3, we're at 10, or making a funny video, somebody, singing an opera that we were at, 21 agreements gained. It was just keeping that energy and kind of going back to that cultural piece. it was so cool and so neat to really see that just transpire, especially with a lot of our new agents. Our ISA department and engagement team is really new to our team. What David, really most of them are within the last 6 months. So again, it was all about getting everybody in the seats, the right people in the seats, having the right culture, the right systems, and the right leaders to lead us to our goal and then exceeding our goal.
I love that. Phil, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I was going to say, our sources for listings are sources for listings, right? I would say what drove us over the top through this competition was focus, which you focus on expands, of course, and skill. I think skill was probably our biggest opportunity as we led into the competition and during it. But our skill had increased dramatically, but also our intention behind the skill. Like we all know the scripts, we know what to say, like whether or not we're going to ask that question, what's the one thing you change about your current home should you have the opportunity? Without a competition, sometimes we may just skip over that question, right? But when you're in a subset of a team within a team, and you have a chance to represent that team and be recognized for it, either through notoriety or through financially, you're going to ask that question. And I think that also through the 90-90 has now become a habit. Like we don't skip over the questions that we need to ask, like through our scripts. So for instance, I think circle prospecting has become a huge focus for us, doing just listed, just solds, and buyer specific prospecting, where we can call our sellers or our listing or a neighborhood and say, hey, I got a buyer who wants to buy your home. If I presented you with an offer, would you entertain it? Yeah. And we can back up that script with the face that I can bring to your door and walk them in if you say yes. So, I mean, there are some of these things where that gave us, like, maybe the audacity is probably not the right word, but it gave us the audacity to use those scripts, be direct. And then how can we help that seller client match with the buyer and then help them find their dream on the other side of that sell?
Yeah, exactly. I know you guys have mentioned this a few times because I want to kind of roll into pitfalls, and I've heard it a couple of times now. Tell me what happened the first time or two that you could anticipate around day 60. You guys have mentioned it a few times now, where something happened where you had team captains switch over, something flagged. Let's kind of walk us through the pitfall that happened then.
Yeah, I'll just say, leading to that, some of the things were so simple, right? And again, we say it's simple, not easy. I mean, let's see how many bold laws we can quote during this webinar. But it was the first time we did the 90 and 90, I don't think we even knew what prizes we were giving away until, like, I don't even know if we knew them in the 90, Dana, did we? Like, it was like, just, if y'all do it, we'll do something cool for you.
Well, just to be clear, really, not to interrupt you, David, but just to be clear, I remember the first time we did a 90 and 90, the reason why we did it is because your coach said, if you don't do a 90-90, you're an idiot. And you said, okay, I'm going to do it.
I don't want to be an idiot.
That's what I remember.
Yeah, probably had to write a check to Josh Anderson or something if I didn't do it. So, no, but it was little things, right? Where it was like this time, like we were like, okay, we have to, like, we can't do this to them again, right? Like we have to go out and have clear, concise teams, understand what they get when they win it. I backed up and basically from a financial standpoint said, okay, if we were to take 90 listings in 90 days, and we really said if we were to take 120 listings in 90 days, what would the financial payoff be for the company? What would the profit margins be, knowing that the listings are more profitable from the buyers? And I essentially looked at it and said, well, at 90 and 90, if we paid out $60,000, or what it was, I said, if we go back 120, if we could take 120 listings in 90 days, we're like, let's overshoot the goal a little bit and see if we can have some conversations around it. And I said, I will dedicate $60,000 to making this a success, which sounds like this huge number, but at 120 listings, it was only $500 a listing.
Yeah.
Right. And so I kind of said, like, well, I would gladly pay $500 a listing to, if I had a good listing that was going to close at our average sales price. And so it became like, okay, well, how do we dedicate that $60,000? And then backing up and understanding that our listing agents probably weren't going to do a whole lot different. They would step up their game, but that was kind of already their thing, right? They already took listings. Well, the conversation that Dana and I and our leadership team had early on was, Okay, so this is going to hinge on the buyer's agents. Everyone else in the company just had to take one a month, right? So it became like, we know our listing agents are going to take their 4 to 6, probably on average. So we said, well, even if every listing agent hit their goal, we still wouldn't hit the team goal of 90 and 90. So this hinges on the people who have to get one taking one. And so that became the conversation, was like, how do we not focus on getting our listing agents to take more business? But how do we focus on everyone who has to get, so the, you know, it's kind of like, have you got your one yet? Have you got your one yet? Right? Who's, oh, look, these people over here have got their one, right? Celebrating them and their prizes, and then breaking down the money to where it was fair to everybody, and having some stuff. Around day 60, we recognized from the first 2 times that intentionality just fell off, right? People got exhausted. And so the rule number 1 of the competition this time was that you had to go ahead and pre-designate a champion to pass the baton to come day 61.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important, because changing behavior, it's the hardest thing to change. Changing any initiative that changes behavior in people is very, very challenging. You have to do a lot of preparation up front, a lot of thought. You know, you guys all did all that, right? You had a budget, you had a plan, you guys got your mindset right. You correlated what success meant for you, and then you pass that on to your people, right? And I kind of want to use the remaining time we have piggybacking on that and talking about your team culture, which I think is incredible. Remind us all, and I know you did this at the beginning, but remind us all, you know, from a number standpoint, you know, David or Phil or Dana, how many agents you have, how many success teams, how many, I think you said 10 locations. Did I get that right?
Yeah,
10?
currently 10 locations.
Okay.
We are.
How many agents, give or take?
20, but at this point, we just brought a few new on. So I think we're about 28 or 29 agents total across all locations.
So that's pretty small for that many locations, actually. It's pretty tight. And how many success team members do you have?
I think we're at 15 at the moment.
Okay. Okay. So about a 1.5 or a heavier hub and a success team at each expansion location, and then a couple, 3, 4 agents at each location.
Yeah, our hub's fairly heavy on buyers experts.
Okay.
Dana still does all the listings here. Most of our expansion locations are one expansion partner and a buyer's agent. There's a few that have 2 buyer's agents in their location. So again, our expansion models are built to kind of build out on that.
Perfect.
So yeah, we just went back about a year ago. I got kind of tired. I kept trying to hire out the job of building the lead gen department. I kept trying to pay someone else to do it, and finally I just took over myself and asked everybody else to just not let, you know, don't let something catch fire or give me. It's funny, I told my maths coach, I was like, I just need 90 days to be able to go and build it. And he laughed at me and he was like, how about a year? And it took almost a year, right? I just handed it over to a director of lead gen about 45 days ago. And so that's probably 8 of the success members.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. So your ISA is your success team. You're counting yeah. And okay. All right. So, okay. So why do you guys think your team culture is so good?
It's all Phil. It's just Phil.
All Phil. We all need a gymnastics coach. That's what I'm getting out of this whole webinar. Blah, blah, blah. 108 and 90. We all need Phil. Phil, tell me what you do, what, you know, that makes it so great.
I don't agree with Dana at all. It's very similar to, you know, we don't achieve any given goal independently. Our culture it's not accidental, but it's also got, you know, it's got nothing to do with me. I would say we've been fortunate to bring people in that we care about and we like to work with. And through us continually doing that, our organization will weed out the bad apples, should there ever be any. I would also say through our hiring process, it's very rare that a bad apple will be let through. Culture over time, you know, has become a combination of kind of like we tell the expansion partners, you know, your culture in Cincinnati, you know, it's maybe what, 75% us as a team, you know, countrywide, the Huffaker group, but that 25% other is yours, and you get to go create that on your own. And I would say the foundation of our culture is that we really do care about each other. We care about, not only our business aspects of life, but we care about our personal aspects. And it's not just about how many dollars are in the bank, but how are things at home? How are things with your health and spiritually, everything? And over time, it has grown into something that we protect, pretty violently, if you will. Because I would say it's the reason why we're all still here. And I'd say it's the reason we continue to bring great people in. It's the reason for all of our successes.
So Dana, now Phil, you can't answer this. Dana has to answer this. Dana, what does Phil do to show you that he cares about you?
He just gives me a hard time, like all the time. He's like
So
the annoying,
but he's paying attention to you. You're getting his time.
He's the annoying brother I never had.
He may be the guy in the playground chasing you, pulling your hair, but he's in the playground pulling your hair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. But if anybody else pulls your hair, they're in trouble. That's all I'm saying, right?
That's right. Do you feel that? Do you feel that from him, Dana? For real?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely.
So you're kind of feeling like you get attention. He brings levity. He's Papa Bear a little bit too. Okay. All right.
And, bring our families into it. Right. And so we've developed into, like it was coworkers, and it was friendships, and now it's developed into family. So don't tell Phil I said that though.
So Dana, what would the other agents say? If I asked the other agents, what do David and Phil do to make you stay? How do you think they would answer?
I mean, it's, so many people join the team for those systems and those processes and the accountability. And we can all agree, right, that accountability sometimes feels icky, especially if we're not where we said we would be as far as a commitment, / goal. But those systems, those processes, the accountability, the culture, I mean, it's exactly what Keller Williams provides, right? It's, God and family and business, and they really just incorporate that into our daily lives. And, outside of personal, we've definitely grown financially too. I mean, it has been a great benefit, for my family. And, when I got into real estate, I was brand new when I took, started listings with David. So I was very, very green. And so I thank him for giving me the opportunity. And then, here I am still, over 5 years later, and I wouldn't have made another decision.
So David and Phil, do you guys have a type of person that you hire? You've mentioned hiring process a few times. Do you think, is there a description of the typical Huffaker Group agent in your mind? What values would they have? Or personality characteristics or?
Yeah, I would say we follow the career visioning process pretty thoroughly. And I would say for a buyer's agent or expansion partner, there's going to be some form of boot camp where you're going to have to live with us for 2 weeks, and we're going to have to see you perform for us to let you in the door past that. Like I don't want to hire you and train you only to find out you're not willing to do the activities necessary to be successful. Boot camp, which was actually our director of, our director of expansion, who's not on the call unfortunately today, she created boot camp. And it was a 2-week process where you come in each week, you make 100 contacts, and if you choose not to, we'll gladly accept, you just basically deselected from the opportunity.
What kind of an agent does well in that environment? Like, is there a type of agent that you can interview and go, they're not going to work well on our team versus one that does?
Yes. Very similar to, I can't remember who exactly said it. Red flags for us if you're mentioning I a lot, right? Like, if it's I, or if it's we, we want to hear the we's, and how can we get into those conversations with people? Really, I would say we need someone who is motivated and gritty. If someone wants to be successful within our models, we have the systems, the skills, the training, we have everything that they need. They got to be gritty on the front end, just like any other business, to launch their business off the ground. So they got to be motivated and they got to be gritty.
So gritty to you means doing work that they don't necessarily want to do, but they understand they have to do it to get to where they want to go.
Well, I would say for a short period of time, you have to grow your database large enough to where you no longer have to prospect outbound. Dana does very little outbound prospecting. So in the last 5 years, she has grown a database big enough to where her prospecting time is all database.
Mm-hmm.
She spends 3 hours, 5 days a week just talking to her database.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the opportunity that we have. And I know David created that in terms of the database. So we know what return we get out of the amount of people that we have in there.
And I'll say that like one of our values, which going back to the culture, something that was not my cup of tea, right? Creating an MVVPs, writing it down, making slides, going over it every
It's a mission, vision, values, beliefs, and perspectives.
Right.
Perspective.
Yep.
Yeah.
It all seemed very airy-fairy to me. So to get it done and get it written and actually execute on it and share it, it meant tremendously more than I ever anticipated. So if you haven't done that, like that is such a cool thing to sit down as a team and ask them, right? Like, what do you believe in? Who are we as a company?
Mm-hmm.
But one of the values in there is no silver bullet. And I think that's a piece we're looking for with agents, right? Someone who understands that like there's no secret way. Like my 3 non-negotiables: integrity, discipline, ownership. Right? If you can fall into those, if you're honest, if you'll work hard, if you'll own the mistakes that you make, and we can coach you through it, great. There's always going to be a place here for people that can. And then the humble, hungry, and aware. Right? You can't be about I. Right? We are a team. We're in this together. We win together. And the awareness piece, right? Just being able to understand that like, we don't know what we don't know, and we don't know everything, and none of us are perfect.
Yeah. Well, guys, our hour is up. I could have gone on and on that. I think the culture you've built is really the foundation to your success, not just as a team, but in this particular, initiative that you did. So kudos to you. Kudos to all of you. Kudos to your agents. I think that 108 listings in 90 days is stellar. I think what you guys are doing is stellar. Really, really great job. I interview a lot of teams, and I'm nothing but impressed every step of the way with working with you guys and learning more about you. So I'd love you to come back if you're open to it, and maybe we can dive into some of these other topics. And I'm pretty sure I can speak for all the people watching. They would like you to come back too. So I might hit you up on that.
Absolutely.
Stay tuned next week, everybody. Yeah, thanks, guys. And we'll see you at noon Pacific time, either on Zoom or the Pivot Shift Ahead. If we ever talk about any materials or anything, you can download them at benkinneyagenttraining.com, and that's where you can register as well. Have a good week, guys. Thank you.